Here in England, the names of football clubs follow a pretty simple format. It tends to be the name of a place, followed by a suffix such as city, town, United or Albion, or simply the words football club. There are some exceptions to that rule. Port Vale are the only football league team not to be named after a place, and the likes of Plymouth Argyle, Nottingham Forest and Sheffield Wednesday all have unique suffixes within the EFL. But that is child's play compared to the inventive names conjured up by the founders of football clubs in a number of different countries. The MLS is home to the likes of Los Angeles Galaxy, San Jose Earthquakes, and my personal favourite, Real Salt Lake. There is a football club in Ghana that I follow loosely called Cape Coast Ebasua Dwarfs, and the Bolivian Primera Division has a particularly strong name game going on, featuring the likes of Always Ready, Blooming, and of course, The Strongest. Weather phenomenon, Ghanaian dwarfs, and adjectives are all well and good, but I was recently asked if there were any football clubs that are named after real people, and if so, could I make a video about them? The answer to the first question is yes, there are lots, especially if you are to include saints and both ancient or mythical figures such as Hercules and Ajax. By my count, there are over 20 football clubs named after Spartacus alone, including a whopping 7 of them solely based in Russia. I have discounted such examples because there are so many of them, and some of them, albeit not Spartacus, probably weren't actually real people. The answer to the second question was also yes, since personally, I found this video absolutely fascinating, both in terms of researching the people themselves and then why there is a football club named after them. Some are utterly bizarre. Honourable mentions, for example, go to Club Atlético Douglas Haig in Argentina, who are named after Sir Douglas Haig, a victorious British general during World War I, or Club Deportivo Luis Angel Firpo in El Salvador, who renamed themselves in honour of the Argentine boxer Luis Angel Firpo after he became the first Latin American to challenge for the world heavyweight title and knocked Jack Dempsey out of the ring, despite Dempsey battling back to win the bout. Hopefully, you will find it as interesting to watch as I did to research then, so here are 7 football clubs that are named after real people. 7th. Botev Plovdiv. A football club that I suspect most of you will probably have heard of at some stage, even if you don't know a great deal about them. Botev Plovdiv are the oldest active football club in Bulgaria, and they featured in the Europa League qualifying stages on 3 occasions since 2013, albeit failing to qualify for the group stages on each occasion. These days, Botev are named after both Bulgarian national hero Hristo Botev and the city that they call home, Plovdiv, which is the second largest city in the country. But originally, when they were founded in 1912, the club was just called Hristo Botev, and they are still most commonly referred to simply as Botev. Non-Bulgarian viewers are unlikely to know a great deal about Hristo Botev. I know I didn't until a few hours ago, but he was a poet and author who was at the forefront of the Bulgarian Renaissance movement before leading a revolution. And all that in a life that unfortunately spanned just 28 years. For someone who is not much younger than that now, it really puts things into perspective as to just how little I have achieved. Botev was born in Bulgaria whilst the country was occupied by the Ottoman Empire, and his public opposition to the Ottoman authorities and wealthy Bulgarians who Botev accused of collaborating with the Ottomans saw him exiled to Romania. Botev became a close friend of the leader of the Bulgarian revolutionary movement, Vasil Levski, whilst the two were roommates living in an abandoned mill together just outside of Bucharest. And after Levski was captured and hung by the Ottoman authorities, Botev became the new leader of the movement. Despite having no combat experience, Botev devised an ingenious plan for crossing into Ottoman territory without alerting the authorities by disguising his troops as gardeners before seizing their steamship en route. It turned out to be a relatively easy task, since Botev's powers of persuasion were such that Following an impassioned speech, the ship's captain actually gave Botev his full support and later even refused to allow the Ottomans to use his ship in pursuit of Botev's rebel forces. Unfortunately, Bulgarian revolutionaries sustained enormous losses during the April uprising, including Botev himself, who was killed by a single shot to the chest. Just 2 years after his death, though, Bulgaria became a semi-autonomous state, which was still part of the Ottoman Empire, but functioned largely independently. Bulgaria declared full independence from the Ottoman Empire in 1908, and Botev is today remembered as a national icon, with towns, streets, schools, and of course a football club named after him, namely Botev Plovdiv, who have won 2 Bulgarian championships and 3 Bulgarian cups, and have, since 2021, been owned by Russian businessman Anton Zingarovich, who previously owned English club Reading. 6th, Club Deportivo Jorge Vilstermann. I said in the introduction that Bolivia is home to some banging football club names, and it is a fantastically named Bolivian Primera Division outfit that features in 6th place. Club Deportivo Jorge Vilstermann, better known as CD Jorge Vilstermann, or most commonly of all, just Vilstermann, are one of the big boys of Bolivian football, having been crowned as Bolivian champions 15 times, the joint second most of any club, tied with the strongest, and trailing only Bolivar. Vilstermann were founded in 1949 by a group of workers from Lloyd Aero Boliviano, which was Bolivia's principal airline from 1925 up until its demise in 2010, and was headquartered in the city of Cochabamba, which is where the team is based. Initially, the club was named San Jose de la Banda, but in 1953, manager Jose Rico, upon the suggestion of Commander Walter Lem, changed the club's name to CD Jorge Vilstermann. The local airport was also renamed Jorge Vilstermann International Airport upon Lem's suggestion, but just who was Jorge Vilstermann, since I would be willing to wager that the number of you who have heard of him who are watching this video is in the single digits. Well, rather aptly, Vilstermann was Bolivia's first commercial pilot, and therefore also Lloyd Aero Boliviano's first pilot, who tragically died in a plane crash at the age of only 25. In 1955, Vilstermann, the football club this is, turned professional, and their golden era began shortly after that. From 1958 to 1960, Vilstermann won 3 successive national championships, a feat that no other Bolivian team has since been able to replicate, beginning a legacy of success which has carried on throughout the decades, ensuring that the name Jorge Vilstermann, Bolivia's first commercial pilot, is never forgotten. 5th, O'Higgins Football Club. Staying in South America, and actually heading west to Bolivia's neighbours Chile, O'Higgins Football Club, sometimes referred to as O'Higgins de Rancagua, are named after one of Chile's 2 founding fathers and the country's first supreme director of the Patria Nueva era. Alright, I can already tell that I've lost you, but rest assured I will claw you back, as Bernardo O'Higgins is a man who is just as interesting as his name would suggest. A member of the Irish noble O'Higgins family, O'Higgins was born to an Irish-Spanish father, who was the Viceroy of Peru, and a Chilean mother in the Chilean city of Chillán. Because of his father's wealth and status, O'Higgins was sent to London to complete his education, where he met the Venezuelan revolutionary Francisco de Miranda. Miranda had a profound effect upon O'Higgins, and after Napoleon took control of Spain and appointed his brother as the new king of Spain, O'Higgins became a key figure in Chile's pro-independence movement. When the Spanish tried to reconquer Chile, despite suffering from ill health, O'Higgins mobilized a local militia where his courage and seeming fearlessness turned him into a legend. The Chilean War of Independence ended up spanning some 16 years, but resulted in a victory for the Patriots and defeat for the Royalists. Chile underwent great reform after O'Higgins became Supreme Director, but his support of democracy and opposition to nobility angered Chile's aristocrats and the church, which led to him being overthrown in a conservative coup in 1923. Ohiggins spent the rest of his days living in Peru, but now enjoys a largely positive legacy in Chile, immortalised by, among many other things, O'Higgins Football Club. Founded through a merger in 1955, O'Higgins won their first Chilean championship in 2013, exactly 200 years on from Bernardo O'Higgins becoming commander-in-chief of the Chilean army. Fourth, Kerala Blasters. It is rare for a football club to be named after a real person, but it is even rarer for them to be named after a person who is still alive. That is the case with Kerala Blasters, though, whose name pays homage to Indian cricket legend Sachin Tendulkar. And yes, you can say that something pays homage without that person being dead, although I did have to Google to double check that. Now, those of you who aren't particularly familiar with all things cricket related might quite reasonably be thinking to yourselves, how are Kerala Blasters named after Sachin Tendulkar? Surely that would have to be Kerala Tendulkar or something like that. But Tendulkar's nickname throughout his playing career, as one of the greatest batsmen in the entire history of the sport, was the Master Blaster. Tendulkar's prowess when it came to India's favourite pastime made him incredibly wealthy, and when the Indian Super League was founded in 2013, to try and raise the profile of football within the country, Tendulkar wanted in. Kerala, along with West Bengal, is one of the two states in India where football is most popular. In April 2014, it was announced that Tendulkar and his business partner, Prasad V. Potlori, had acquired the rights to an ISL team in the region, and the following month, the club's name was revealed. Among the most popular football clubs, not just in India, but in all of Asia, having had record attendances in excess of 60,000, the club's average attendance in their debut campaign was more than 55,000. The club's first player coach and marquee signing was the former England number 1 David James, whose successors have since included the likes of Peter Taylor, Steve Coppell, and René Meulenstein. 3-time ISL runners-up, but yet to get their hands on a league title, Tendulkar sold 80% of the club's ownership rights to a group of Bollywood actors and producers in 2016, and his remaining 20% stake in 2018. But the club still bears his nickname that he bestowed it with 8 years ago. Third, Newells Old Boys. Newells Old Boys are a hugely significant football club, not just in Argentina but in a global context, having helped to nurture the likes of Mauricio Pochettino, Gabriel Batistuta, and Lionel Messi prior to his move to Barcelona, who offered to cover the treatment of his growth hormone deficiency. Newells was also briefly home to Diego Armando Maradona, and their stadium, the Estadio Marcelo Bielsa, is named after former Leeds United boss Marcelo Bielsa, who was previously employed by Newells as a player, scout, and manager before going on to spend 6 years managing Argentina. A stadium isn't bad going, Marcelo. Well done and all that, but if you think that's impressive, a school teacher from Kent had the entire club named after him. Isaac Newell grew up in Kent at a time when football was in its infancy in England, but was enjoying an enormous surge in popularity. Newell was already passionate about football when he boarded a ship setting sail for Argentina at the age of only 16, and after 15 years working for the Central Argentine Railway, Newell founded the Colegio Comercial Anglicano Argentino in Rosario, where he taught English. Alongside academic studies, Newell also implemented a strong sporting program, with football taking centre stage. In 1903, 4 years before Newell's death, Newells Old Boys were founded as a football club that would be represented by teachers, students, and alumni of the college. Hence why the team took on Newell's name. Newell's son, Claudio Newell, was also one of the team's principal founders, and 118 years and 6 Argentine championships later, one of Argentina's most historic football clubs still bears the name of a man who pioneered football in the country. Second, Willem II. Inevitably, a lot of football clubs named after real people are named after royals. The only 2 English football clubs that I could find that play at a semi-decent level and are named after real people, namely Northwich Victoria and Crewe Alexandra, are both named after British queens. Queen Victoria, in Northwich Victoria's case, and Alexandra of Denmark in Crew Alexandra's case, who was the Queen of the United Kingdom and the British Dominions, and Empress of India from 1901 to 1910. I know, whilst her husband Edward VII was king. Willem II are an even more high-profile example, as three-time Dutch champions whose former players include the likes of Jaap Stam, Mark Overmars, Virgil van Dijk, and Frenkie de Jong. Founded in 1896 as Tilburgia, since the club is based in the city of Tilburg, they renamed themselves Willem II in 1898 after the Dutch king Willem II, who is anglicised as William II of the Netherlands. The reason being that Willem II, as commander of the Dutch army, had his military headquarters in Tilburg during the Belgian uprising of 1830, and he spent many years living there after becoming king, and even died there at the age of 56. A pragmatist and moderate, Willem II was actually a very significant monarch, since despite his own deep-rooted conservatism, he presided over numerous liberal reforms in the Netherlands, including the country's transition to becoming a constitutional monarchy and parliamentary democracy with its own constitution in 1848. Willem only did so through fear of the 1848 revolutions across Europe spreading to the Netherlands and through the desire for self-preservation. But, it worked. Willem II, the football club I am referring to now, haven't been crowned as Dutch champions since 1955, though they were Eredivisie runners-up in 1999, and they currently compete in the Eerste, having been relegated from the top flight last season. First, Vasco da Gama. We end with a man with not one, not two, but three different football clubs named after him, and four if you include a now-defunct team named Vasco da Gama, from South Africa. I am aware, it should be said, that all 7 inclusions are clubs named after men and not women, despite me giving mention to the 2 English teams named after former royal women, but before you all rush to cancel me, I have actually just illustrated the structural sexism in football team names which exists across the world, and for that I should probably be thanked. Vasco da Gama was a Portuguese explorer, and the first European to reach India by sea. His voyage to India, right at the end of the 1400s, is considered a landmark moment in history, as it merged the continents of Europe and Asia by sea, paving the way for massive global imperialism and the expansion of the Portuguese Empire throughout much of Asia and Africa. So, yeah, thanks Vasco, that was great. It should be said that I'm not just woke scolding a Portuguese explorer from 500 years ago. Like so many European explorers, da Gama was a truly wretched human being, even by the standards of the day. Often referred to as Portugal's Columbus, that nickname is more apt than you might think, as da Gama had an equally brutal reputation. Renowned for the violence, hostage-taking, and willingness to threaten unarmed civilians at gunpoint upon his voyages, in 1502, da Gama's fleet infamously intercepted a ship of Muslim pilgrims travelling to Mecca, looted the ship, locked the more than 400 passengers on board, including more than 50 women, and burnt them all to death. The lives of the 20 children on board were spared, but only on the proviso that they agreed a forced conversion from Islam to Christianity. Yeah, lovely bloke. You might wonder why da Gama has a city in Goa, a crater on the moon, and multiple different football clubs named after him then, but just like Christopher Columbus, da Gama was celebrated for centuries, especially by the Portuguese, and Brazilian outfit Vasco da Gama, based in Rio de Janeiro, the most famous football club that is named after him, were founded by Portuguese immigrants to Brazil. Despite an illustrious past, which includes 4 Campeonato Brasileiro Serie A titles and a Copa Libertadores crown in 1998, Vasco currently compete in Serie B, having been relegated from Brazil's top flight for a 4th time in 2020. That is it for today's video. I could have included the likes of Colo Colo, Club Presidente Hayes, and a litany of other teams named after real people. But I felt that I picked out 7 interesting examples, and if you agree, feel free to hit the like button, let me know your thoughts down below in the comments, and make sure you're subscribed and have notifications turned on for HITC Sevens. You can also find me on either Twitter or Instagram via the username at HITC Sevens on both, should you wish to do so.